I'm sure that many of you have encountered that and gotten shot by that 4-shot bandito himself, Jhin, the virtuoso. Jhin is such a wondrous ADC that has a rather simple, but yet complex mechanic to him. His 4-shot mechanic makes him prone to all-ins when he doesn't have all of his bullets in the chamber, and he can be punished rather easily due to his lack of mobility. In my eyes, I think Jhin is a top tier AD in the right hands, but don't get me wrong, he can easily be shut down if you don't play him properly, and if you're in the wrong places at the wrong time. He's gotten nerfed over the time, but recently he got some buffs to counteract that, but it's still nowhere near as good as giving good old Jhinny Boy back his 10% cooldown reduction for every bullet left in his ultimate. Man, that was nice. And now, the curtain rises to get into what makes Jhin so good, his incredible kit. Okay, so this is where things tend to get a little complicated. Jhin sees his enemies as something that needs to be painted beautiful, and with that, his passive Whisper allows Jhin to subdue them to death in 4 acts. His basic attacks use ammo that have 4 shots in the chamber, with the final shot being a guaranteed crit. His 4th shot is really important to hit on an enemy because it's free damage, and now here, this is where all the math comes into play. I'm not gonna read it all because it's a lot, and I mean a lot, so let's get into it. The 4th shot deals an additional 25% missing health bonus at max rank, which is rank 11, as physical damage. This 4th shot can work on towers, but it does 44% reduced damage. And now for the next part of Jhin's passive. His crits give him bonus movement speed, and the math is kinda fucky, so I'm not gonna bother explaining, so instead, here's a picture. Jhin's total crit damage is reduced by 25%, and here's another thing. Jhinny Boy, he doesn't get attack speed from items. Instead, that attack speed from items like say Phantom Dancer gets converted into AD, which is very good because the more AD he has, the more damage he does. Huh, who would have thought? More AD equals more damage. Interesting. So the math on Jhin's bonus AD based off of attack speed is rather complex, so here's another picture on the math. Oh, and also crits give him bonus AD too, don't forget that. Jhin is one of those champs who can pretty much almost easily hit over 500 AD, which is beautiful thanks to his passive. Alright, so now we go on to his abilities. Dancing Grenade is Jhin's Q, and it's literally just a grenade that dances. Not literally though, it bounces off the first target you hit and goes upwards to 3 nearby enemies, and the damage increases by 35% per target killed. So it's great to use this on minions when they're low, and if the enemy champion or ADC like support or whoever is like right next to them, so you can get pretty much really free damage off on them. This is your main ability to use in lane just to poke them down. Next up, his W, Deadly Flourish. This is probably the only non-ultimate ability that has so much range. How lovely. Deadly Flourish's passive, Caught Out, marks enemy champions damaged by Jhin's autos, his allies, or when they're struck by Jhin's E, and this mark is left on them for about 4 seconds. When Jhin fires off his W, it hits the first enemy, and if that enemy is marked, they will get rooted, and Jhin gains a passive movement speed buff. Jhin's E is Captive Audience. It's virtually rather useless early on unless the enemy jungler is putting high pressure on bot lane. And passively, this summons a Lotus Trap under the enemy that Jhin has killed. He stores up to 2 of these Lotus, and they can be placed down to act as a ward. But now when Jhin kills an enemy and he has 2 of his Lotus, it doesn't take away from the 2 Lotus that he has. So technically you can have up to 7 of them on the field, assuming you get a Penta, which is really good, and that damage is amazing. If an enemy steps on this Lotus, they get slowed and marked, so that Jhin can then combo this with his W to root them and deal extra damage due to the Lotus's explosion. And now the curtain rises for Jhin's ultimate, Curtain Call. This ultimate is the work of a god. It's so lovely how whenever you use this amazing ultimate, the camera zooms out so you can practically see everywhere up in front of the cast range, except through the Fog of War, because that would be really busted. Jhin's ult gives him a sniper that wields up to 4 shots. Each shot that hits slows an enemy down, dealing bonus missing health damage. The 4th shot, you guessed it, crits. So now that you have the rundown of what Jhinny Boy can do, let's get into the runes and masteries. For his runes, I like to take lethality reds, armor yellows, 4 mana regen, and 5 MR blues, followed up with 3 lethality or 3 AD quints. The reason for the mana regen is just because since you're going to probably be using your Q a crap ton in lane, the extra mana regen is helpful and it will allow you to get even like 1 or 2 extra Qs off in lane. It may not seem like enough, but that damage adds up over time. Masteries go with 18-0-12 with Warlords or Deathfire as your keystone. When it comes to leveling up your abilities, max Q, W, and E. Try not to put a point into E for as long as you can unless you're forced to due to enemy pressure. And now for the main course, the build. So what you start on Jhin really varies now in my opinion. With the patch 7.14's changes to Duskblade and Youmuu's, you can go for either or for your first item. If you want the mobility that Youmuu's offers, I recommend that to be your first buy. If you just want the extra burst and be more assassiny, Duskblade is your option. It's my preferred first item since the damage that the new Duskblade deals is so good. For your second item, it should always be Rapid Fire. This gives you that extra range for your fourth shot to give you that wondrous execution, along with the passive bonus that gives Warlords a 25% faster charge. After Rapid Fire, IE is your best friend. It beefs up your crit damage since your passive lowers it in the first place, but your ult's fourth shot is not affected by the crit reduction. After IE, you go Shiv since the Shiv Rapid Fire combo is just too damn good now. You have a few options for your final item right here. You can go for the 100% race card Jhin build and get an Essence Reaver as your last item, get a Last Whisper to shred tanks, or get a lifesteal item just to save yourself from sticky situation. Oh yeah, boots. Swifties are a must just for mobility purposes, but if you absolutely have to, I recommend you get tabbies or merc treads. Now overall, I think Jhin is a fantastic AD, and he's by far my favorite in the role. His mechanics are incredible and his playstyle is super fun, not to forget how cool his ultimate is. I do highly recommend that you try out this build as it does fare really well, and that's all for this video guys. I hope you really enjoyed the video, and please leave a like as it does show your support, and it also does help me out quite a bit. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my other videos as well. Thank you all so much for watching, it does mean a lot, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Peace.